Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for the keyboard waiting game. So, you bought your first board. Congrats. I hope you're patient. So, that's what this video is all about. It's all about what to do while waiting for a board. Uh, kind of applies for key sets as well, but generally more board related. Just like the rest of the videos in the series, uh, it's more oriented towards newer people in the hobby that want to learn, and this follows the route of the whole experience from looking at an IC to building your board and being happy with it. So I guess that's it. Let's roll the intro, and I'll see you there. Before we get into the video, I want to thank Ankit, I want to thank SE, I want to thank Atra, and I want to thank Hawk, who specifically helped me put together this video. Thank you. Thank you, every other patron that also helps me out. I do appreciate it. Let's start with the first bit. The first bit is to stay updated, but not too updated, right? You bought a board, you kind of want to know what's going on with it. Where are you going to get the updates? Well, firstly, get into Discord, okay? Get into Discord for updates, okay? Mute all the channels. Once you join the Discord, turn off all the notifications except for the announcement or the updates channel. That's it. Or find out where the particular maker provides updates and be in there. So some makers will update on Geek Hack, some will update you via email, but generally Discord. Especially for EU group buys, I've been told that you're not going to get any updates unless you're in the Discord. So, a word of advice, don't really hang out in there. All Discords, even mine, are an echo chamber. And if you're looking for proper advice, you got to leave the inner circle and ask elsewhere. So, same rules apply as before. Ask multiple sources of information from multiple locations. So, you got a board coming in, you've got some questions about, how is it going to be? What's it going to sound like? How can I compare it to other things? Don't ask in the maker's Discord. Make some friends elsewhere. It's fine. And most importantly, don't spend too much time checking the updates. It's unhealthy, right? You have very little control over when you're actually going to get your unit. So now is the time to be proactive and get some shit done, okay? And that moves us into the next section. Plan your build, okay? A well-planned build is a fantastic build. Some of my best builds are builds that I spent the longest amount of time in the planning phase on. Like, for example, my V2 there, where I spent 4 months working on the switches. Did I need to spend the entire 4 months working on the switches? No, but having such a long lead time gave me the opportunity to go out and research and be like, maybe this kind of switch with this kind of plate is going to be amazing. And it turns out it was. It gave me the time to find the stems that I wanted, the housings that I wanted, the springs that I wanted, the lube that I wanted, all of that, and like really, really plan down the build to a T long before I get it. Obviously, you're still waiting for a board. You have time. You have time now. So you should know how to solder, how to lube switches and stabs. If you don't know how to do either, I have guides. There's a playlist somewhere on my channel. And soldering is in there, lubing is in there. Also, look at another source just so you get it from multiple points of view. I will put links for the solder guide, the lube guide, and the stab guide in the description, okay? So we're planning. Let's figure out what kind of switches you want in the build, right? Again, ask outside the echo chamber and get multiple sources of advice, right? We talked about going to meetups in one of the previous videos and how meetups are a great opportunity for you to try things that you wouldn't normally try. But let's say you've done that and you still don't know. Ask some people, talk to some people. If you're clueless, consider a cheap hot swap board, which we'll cover later, and some switches to try out. Just buy like whatever the bare minimum amount of switches you can buy and just buy a bunch of them and try them out, Also, plan your caps, right? If you ordered a GMK or another group buy set alongside your board, you're probably not going to get it in time, right? The average turnaround time for a keyboard is like a few months. A GMK set is a couple years, if not more. So consider what your temporary set will be. Are you going to buy a $28 Shenpo set from Taobao? Or are you going to be an idiot and go on Mech Market and overpay for something? Is there CRP extras coming? Is all of these are questions that you should ask yourself of, okay, I'm going to get my board. What caps are going on this? Like, when in doubt, beige. Okay, but that's my thing. If you don't like beige and you like, specific colorways and stuff like that, fine. Do your research, find out what you're going to put on it. And finally, for planning your build, don't forget your lubes, your films, and your springs. Okay? Lubes and films, fairly standard. Springs are very, very, very important. You should know this, but if you don't know this, the importance of a spring is much more important than the smoothness of a switch. Because if I have 10 of these switches and the stock spring has a variance of 20 grams, 20 grams is huge. That means one switch can feel completely different than another switch, even though they're the same batch. And that's terrible. Most stock switches will have an incredibly high variance. You could go and buy some TX springs, which have a 1 gram variance. And a 1 gram variance, when you're typing, across an entire board, leads you to feel like all your switches are more consistent and more smooth. So you've got the time, get some springs. Get some springs. And while you're at it, learn to China. All right. Next section. Prep your build. Okay. So we planned the build. Now prep your build. You've got time. So break in your switches. Every little bit helps. Even if you're unable to tell the difference between a broken in and an unbroken in switch right now, you will be in the future. It's something that you will learn with time. A lot of people that are relatively new to the hobby will have difficulty differentiating between a broken in and a non-broken in switch, and will be like, oh, it makes no difference. Of course it makes a difference. I can tell the difference with gloves on in a blind test. You learn what to pick up on. It's like learning to taste fine wine. When you start drinking wine, it all tastes like ass until you learn the subtleties. All right, let's say you've broken in your switches. Let's say you don't care and you've skipped breaking in your switches. Well, lube your switches. Follow the slow and steady approach. Don't get burned out. You've got all the time in the world. Sit down, do 5 to 10 switches. Lube them up, and that's it. Next day, or a couple days later, do another 5 to 10 switches. Take your time. Even if your board comes right now, okay? Even if the box is right there in front of you, you don't have to build it right now. You don't have to build it right now. A lot of people make this mistake. A lot of more experienced people in the hobby make this mistake of they get a board and they're just like, I have to build it right now. No, you absolutely do not. It can sit in a box until the build is ready. Because if you're willing to take the time and effort to actually put together something nice, don't rush it. A well-planned build is a far better build than a slap-it-together build. And I'll fallen victim for this. We'll all be super excited and I'll have a keyboard. I'll be like, I got to build it right now. And it turns out terrible. And then I have to rebuild it after planning and preparing and all of that. Finally, for prepping your build, prep your expectations. You may see some conflicting info about your board. Don't be too quick to take other people's opinions as gospel. You may have different preferences than them. Let's say you bought a board and I do a review on it and I say, oh, this board is terrible and it's the worst thing ever created. Well, who cares what I say? You might like it, And the same logic goes for positive reviews. Again, the same rule applies. Don't get all your information from one source. Be smart enough to realize that in this hobby, it's all about preference, and we all feel different ways about different things. I hate putting foam in my boards. I don't like MX tactiles. Maybe you like both of those things. That's fine, All right, let's say we've prepped the build, okay? Planned the build, prepped the build. What's next? Don't cut your losses. Don't be an idiot, okay? What I mean by that is if you've been waiting 4 years for a keyboard, like I have. Don't be so quick to just be like, I don't want to deal with this anymore and I'm going to sell this lot or something like that. No. Get something to keep you busy in the interim, okay? Consider a cheap hot swap board, like a Keychron or a hot swap Mechanico, something small to give you something to type on. And if you already have a board, chill. You're good, you know? Also, consider picking up a G80, like a G80 1800. You can find it on like eBay or Craigslist or whatever your local, marketplace app is for like 20 bucks. Or get a Model M, probably not an SSK, get a full-size Model M. You'll pay 60 bucks for it for something pretty good, and it's an enjoyable experience. Don't go to Mech Market. You've done well this far and you bought a group buy board. Let's keep it that way, right? Consider a cheap Topra. Get it from Japan. Learn to Japan while you're at it. See, all of these activities we're doing is just to fill up time as we wait for the board to come. Because if we just sit there and refresh the updates and be like, when is this board coming? And that's your whole world, your expectations are going to be too high and you're probably going to be disappointed when you get it. So consider learning to Japan or learn to China. I will give you a guide in the description. Pick up something cheap alongside your temporary caps, maybe even your switches. I get all my switches from China and they're great, All of these are things that you can do while you're sitting around. And listen, if it's been a while, just sit tight, okay? You may want to charge back your slot. Generally, this is not a good idea. You can wait for something. You've got this. I mean, it is the group buy experience. The group buy experience is sometimes you get a board in 2 months, sometimes it takes 2 years. But hey, what are you going to do? If you actually have an emergency or something, then feel free. But otherwise, be the best Buddhist you can be. Just chill. One more piece of advice before we get into the summary. This was something shared in the Discord by Hawk. This is something that I tell a lot of people, but I want you guys to hear it from someone else. Hawk says, I think the best advice I got from you was when I was starting out in the hobby and it was not to buy meme switches and instead get some relatively cheap Gaterons or cherries. The first switches I ever bought were some JWKs because that's what all the hype people recommended. And although they were very smooth, they felt like cheap plastic. And the experience was bad enough to make me think that I didn't like linears for a long time. Then I got some basic GATs and my perspective changed and I saved money. That's from Hawk himself. A lot of people look at it this way, and I look at it this way. I'll pick up some GAT Pros, pick up some Hyperglides from China for like 22 to 24 cents each, get some Milky Tops. They're great. When you're paying 13 cents a switch, you're getting a lot of value out of that switch. And I know you're going to be like, oh, but I bought a $600 keyboard. I got to put, $1.30 per switches in there. No, you don't. You'll probably have a better time just with a nice, simple switch. My V2 build that I talked about earlier has 9-cent switches in it. Greetech Blacks, 9 cents. This is objectively my best keyboard build. And everybody that tries it tells me the same thing. Out of all of them, 9-cent switches are the best because they were good, they were fresh, they were recently retooled, and I put some very nice springs in them, made it very enjoyable. So, okay, I need to zoom out. Okay, summary. Oh God, no. All right, so summary. Part 1, seriously, thank you to my patrons. Thank you, everybody that supported me on Patreon. If you've noticed a more consistent upload schedule, it's because of the patrons. I had very little motivation to actually make YouTube videos because on average, I'd lose $200+ per YouTube video because I have to pay for shipping, for review units and all of that. So thank you, everybody that has supported me on Patreon. Thank you for motivating me to make more videos. Okay. All right. So the summary. 1, waiting is hard. Waiting is very hard. Okay. And you'll have to excuse me. I'm typing on a solenoid keyboard. Okay. You got to keep yourself busy. Spend your time planning. Make your build spectacular. Okay. If you're going to spend that much money on a build, make it worthwhile. Make it worthwhile. Put the effort in. Prep your switches and prep your temporary caps if you need to, okay? And while you're at it, figure out what you like. you know, figure out what you like, try something new, slap it in a hot swap board, get something cheap, consider oh, it's not there. Where is it? Oh, well, it's there. Consider an NCR 80 for 80 bucks. It's fun. Or just buy a Cherry G80. Grab something to keep you busy, whatever it may be. Could be cheap Topro, could be something from China, could be something from Japan, could be a Keychron. And most importantly, chill. It will come when it comes, okay? It will come when it comes. And that's it. That's the whole video. In the next video, we'll talk about what to do when your keyboard actually arrives, what to look out for in terms of quality control, how do you know if there's something wrong with it, how to figure out what type of build specifically would go well with that particular build, and the whole building experience and things like that, right? Right. So thank you for making it this far in the video. I haven't told anybody to subscribe if they like videos in like 5 videos. So if you like keyboard content, consider dropping a sub. And thank you.